So, here's a big question for you. Is history shaped by massive, unstoppable forces? Or is it really about rare individuals who just bend the world to their will? Well, we're going to dive into a story that puts that question to the ultimate test. We're talking about the creation of the Qin war machine.
We're heading back to the 4th century BCE, to a time when the state of Qin was basically the laughingstock of ancient China. Seriously, they were the underdog, this forgotten state way out on the west. But all of that was about to change thanks to one man, a total outsider who was going to transform this weak little kingdom into an absolutely unstoppable engine of war.
Look, to really get how big of a deal this was, you've got to understand just how bad things were for Qin. People saw them as a cultural backwater, a total desert compared to the fancy, sophisticated states in the middle of everything. They were teetering on the edge of complete collapse.
I mean, that's total isolation, right? Just imagine a country being so irrelevant that when all the other world leaders get together to decide the fate of, well, everything, you don't even get an invitation. That was Qin's reality. Rock bottom.
So, a new ruler, Duke Xiao, inherits this absolute disaster of a kingdom, and he puts out this legendary order for talent. But let's be clear, this wasn't some corporate job posting. No, this was a desperate scream for help from a leader who knew, deep down, that his kingdom was about to get wiped right off the map.
And you know what? That scream was heard. But here's the crazy part. The guy who held the key to Qin's future, he wasn't even in Qin. He was in the rival state of Wei. His name was Shang Yang, a certified genius, and his own government was just letting his talent go completely to waste.
Okay, so the scene here is just incredibly dramatic. The Prime Minister of Wei is literally on his deathbed. His king rushes over asking who could possibly replace him. And the old man, he knows exactly who. But he also knows just how dangerous that man is.
This is the chilling advice he gives about his own subordinate, Shang Yang. Think about what he's saying. This man is a strategic weapon. You either use him for us, or you eliminate him before our enemies get their hands on him. The talent was undeniable, but the big question was, would the king of Wei actually listen?
And this slide just lays it all out, right? This is the difference between mediocrity and vision. King Hui of Wei hears this incredible, urgent warning and just shrugs it off. He thinks his dying advisor is just old and confused. Meanwhile, on the other side of the border, Duke Xiao of Qin is desperately screaming for exactly this kind of game-changing talent.
So after the king leaves, the dying prime minister tells Shang Yang, "You got to run for your life." But Shang Yang? He's as cool as a cucumber. He drops this incredible line, just perfectly sizing up his own king's total incompetence. He knew he was safe, not because anyone valued him, but because his leader was a complete fool.
So Shang Yang hears Duke Xiao's call for talent, packs his bags, and heads to Qin. He finally gets his meeting with the Duke, but his first couple of attempts to impress him are a total flop.
In their first 2 meetings, Shang Yang tries the conventional route. He talks about virtue, morality, benevolent rule. The standard political philosophy you'd expect. Well, the Duke literally falls asleep, right there in the meeting. He wasn't looking for feel-good philosophy, he was looking for a weapon. All right, so for the 3rd meeting, Shang Yang completely changes his tune. He throws out all that talk about tradition and virtue, and instead he unrolls a blueprint for something totally new, something radical, a vision for absolute centralized state power. This was called the Hegemon's Way, and it was built on pure, ruthless pragmatism. The goal wasn't to be good, it was to be strong. The plan was to re-engineer the entire state from the ground up, using incredibly strict laws to turn every single citizen into a tool for one of 2 things: growing food or fighting in the army. Duke Xiao was absolutely mesmerized. He saw a kind of destructive beauty in this terrifyingly efficient idea.
But, as you can probably guess, when Duke Xiao took this radical plan to his court, it was like setting off a bomb. The entire establishment, all the nobles, all the ministers, they were furious. Here was Shang Yang, this foreigner, standing alone against the traditions of an entire kingdom.
This was Shang Yang's first shot back at them. He basically argues that you can't achieve truly groundbreaking change by committee or by taking a popular vote. Visionary work, he's saying, is lonely work by its very nature.
And then he drops this bombshell on all the specialists in the room.
Experts, he says, are great for keeping the current system running smoothly, but their vision is way too narrow to design a new system. So, he argues, they have to be kept far away from any discussion of grand strategy.
And this is his final, powerful closing argument. He draws a line in the sand. He says, look, you can either be an ordinary person and follow the old ways and keep getting the same old, terrible results, or you can be wise, break from the past, and create something entirely new.
Well, after that stunning performance, the debate was over. The future of Qin, and really all of China, came down to the decision of one man, listening to another.
And there it is, Duke Xiao gives his verdict. With just a few words, he hands the keys to the entire kingdom over to Shang Yang. He puts all of his trust, not in its own advisors, not in his traditions, but in this foreign maverick with a radical and, honestly, a really dangerous idea.
Shang Yang now had the ultimate green light to just tear down the old world. He was about to fundamentally rewrite the national operating system of Qin, turning a nation of people into a hyper-efficient machine of farmers and soldiers.
And that brings us right back to where we started. Shang Yang's whole philosophy was that to achieve real greatness, you have to ignore what the masses want and you have to sideline the experts. He built an empire that would literally change the world. But when you look at the cost, you have to ask yourself, was he the visionary leader that history needed, or was he just a dangerous tyrant?